What's going on, all you wild ghouls, werewolves, and vampires? It's your two favorite horror hosts back here for the final video of our 31 days of horror. You know what that means? It's Halloween. So happy Halloween to all you wild
Happy
ghouls out there.
Halloween.
Happy Halloween! Scary
Yeah.
everywhere. We finally did it. Our favorite day of the year, one of our favorite days of the year, Halloween. We've been reviewing 30 videos this month thus far, and it's been a great time. Me and this guy, my best mate over here, Henry Hill. We're doing what we do best, and that's talking about new and old horror flicks and TV shows. Tonight we're going to be doing our final episode. We're doing something a little different for our Halloween. Usually we do our favorite kills from horror movies, franchises, Halloween, Friday the 13th. But we decided to do something a little different for all you viewers out there. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite Halloween episodes from sitcoms.
That's right. We're going to talk about a couple of our favorite ones. Looking for something to watch that, reminds you of, when you were a kid, trick or treating and your family and the excitement for all that. And these two shows really deliver that. And that's why we always like to revisit these frequently, if not every year, every other year. And we're going to talk about a couple of our favorites. And we're talking about your favorite one, your favorite sitcom ever with Tim the Toolman Taylor himself, Home Improvement.
Yeah, definitely my favorite sitcom since the show came out. I rewatched all the Halloween episodes, especially, but I rewatched the first four seasons, so I got to watch the last. Love this show. It still holds up. It's very sexist. I don't think it would work today. A lot of sexist things that Tim Taylor says to his wife Jill, and women in the kitchen and all that stuff. And he has his show Tool Time, and always has some ridiculous, situation he's in. He always kind of apologizes to his wife on TV and goes home and everything's okay. And they had three boys, JTT, you got Brad and Mark and Randy, played by JTT. And but yeah, my favorite show, the Halloween episodes are still my favorite compared to other shows of that time.
Yeah.
But the first one being from 1992, Haunting of Taylor House,
The Haunting of Taylor House.
really kind of sets it all up. It reminds you being a kid going to your friend's house during Halloween. Everything would be decorated. The rich people usually, because we're poor, they can afford all the decorations. But you walk in and see it's like a real haunted house, and that's when spooky things happen.
Ooh, those Taylors know how to get wild during Halloween, don't they? They
Yeah,
always
they
have the
do.
coolest greatest, practical effects. In this first episode, the first Halloween episode of Home Improvement, they have, they're making the bowl and it's supposed to be the eyeballs with the grapes. And, they're always playing practical jokes on each other and really playing up the Halloween spirit with all the kids dressing up. But even, Tim and Jill getting in on the action and they're always excited. And that kind of passes on down to their kids. And that's what I noticed in this first episode. And right away we get Al, into the mix, getting a prank played on him. They're doing the jack-o'-lantern carving on Tool Time. And of course, Tim, more power. He
Yeah.
ends up showing his pumpkin and it's not carved yet, but you can see the outline of it. And then he's like, stand back. And he blows it up basically. And then it's carved from the explosion, of course.
Yeah.
So funny stuff like that. But yeah, just how they make the haunted house and everything through their house at the end, like you mentioned, it's like your friends that had more money and like to decorate and do all this cool stuff, and then invite other people over and other friends over for Halloween parties. That's really what this show really captures for me. The Haunting of Taylor House, pretty awesome episode. All the kids were super young and super into it. I'm trying to think what they were dressed as in this one.
Yeah.
Was
Well, you had the story of
Jill the carrot?
yeah, you had the story of Brad, Raggedy Ann, and Andy. His girlfriend was going to show up, dressed up, and she showed up with some other guy played by Ryder Strong
Ryder Strong.
from Boy Meets World.
Yeah.
He's
He's
like,
like, yeah,
hey,
he had a
hey,
leather
babe.
coat.
He's like, they're like 12. They're like, hey, babe. They walk into the
Yeah.
Taylor house, and Brad is obviously pretty pissed off about it. But they have the catacombs of terror in the basement where they set it up. The kids go through and they get scared by
Yeah.
Tim and Al and all them. So this Danny kid played by Ryder Strong goes down, just like this ain't scary, and they end up scare the crap out of him. He runs upstairs.
Al's head's in the toolbox.
The
Yeah.
toolbox, yeah, exactly the way it's set up, and like you said, all the practical effects and makeup work they do on these. episodes are always my favorite. They're just really well done, and it always just feels like Halloween as a kid to me. Very nostalgic, and it's the first Halloween episode they had just really kicked it off nicely for what they're going for in the show when it comes Halloween season.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Home Improvement if there wasn't a lesson for somebody to learn within there. But it's just funny because it's always Tim. He does something stupid, and like you mentioned, has to apologize and like get the family all on one page by the end of the episode. That's what they did with these sitcoms back in the day. It was always like a mistake, and then how they were going to redeem themselves at the end. And it's the same for this. Like you mentioned, seeing Ryder Strong, that was funny. Playing like the bike, trying to be a biker, he was acting all tough. Brad being crushed, and yeah, you can see on his face he's just pissed when he shows up, and having him play the little punk and having Tim get to scare the crap out of him at the end. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, for sure. And really great episode. It's really great how they set that up, being the first Halloween episode. And then a year later was my favorite Home Improvement Halloween episode called Crazy for You. Came out in 1993 in October. Really great. As we were talking before, they always like pulling pranks on one another, but this one's really geared at Tim, the tool man, Taylor. He basically gets this, fan named Rose gets a letter, like cookies and stuff like that. He has a big fan. He's all excited about it. But, realistically, we find out about Jill and who's behind all this. And it's not who he expects it to be, but he's, feels like a big superstar. And they show up once again at the Taylors at the Halloween party. And that's where we get to see Rose. Rose has this like red hat on and dress. It looks like Carmen Sandiego. But the Taylors having yet again another awesome costume Halloween party with people dressed up and everything, and it leads to the very end of who we find out who's behind Rose.
Yeah, I love that story. It was definitely a nod to Alfred Hitchcock, the whole kind of mystery behind it. But it was funny to see Tim all excited because he was getting more cookies. And the running gag on the show is Al always gets more mail and has more fans because Tim's a jerk, obviously. But Tim gets real excited because he's getting cookies and roses, and he's really excited about this other woman for some reason. He's married, obviously, and doesn't really care about the repercussions of having his wife be jealous or anything, which is kind of weird. But it's just the nature of the show. It's just kind of how it went. But yeah, I like this episode too. It was cool how they kind of kept it a mystery the whole time. I like Tim. The way he was dressed in this was pretty cool too. He was the zombie, right, in this season with his hair kind of up and messed up.
Yeah, his costumes are always top notch, and I love how they always have this bickering back and forth between Jill and Tim, and them trying to outdo one another in pranks. And Jill totally wins this episode in this season for sure. She was awesome. I love how they did that and brought in Al. Al and Tim don't really get along either, but Al's character was hilarious, and he was great. My favorite Home Improvement Halloween episode.
Richard Karn.
Yeah, exactly. Richard Karn. But my favorite Home Improvement Halloween episode, definitely something for you guys to check out. It's streaming on Hulu right now. Some other honorable mentions. There was the Borland Ambition, Let Them Eat Cake. Basically every year came out with a new Halloween episode. But one of my favorites was I Was a Teenage Taylor in 1996. Again, the family pulling pranks on one another, trying to outdo one another and scare each other. So that was a good one.
I'll have to check that one out. I watched the first three, so I'll need to watch those other ones. But I just remember the first half of their Halloween. They do it yearly, like you mentioned. I remember the first half of those. The first Halloween episodes were the best batch out of the Home Improvement episodes, but I enjoyed all of them really. I watched the show all the time when it was airing back in the day, and every year around Halloween time, I loved watching these episodes because they'd always do something cool, and the pranks they'd play on each other, they'd really get in the Halloween spirit and nerd out on the holiday like we do. That's why we love them. So loved revisiting these episodes. They're a lot of fun.
I feel like Home Improvement was a big part of me loving Halloween as a young kid. In 1992, I was 7. It came out, so grade school, my son's age back then, and watching this, back on TV. I think ABC back then. Every October they'd have a new one for 8 seasons that went on. Every October they had one. You go into 1998 called Bewitched, which was the last one, having to do with the disappearance of Wilson. And then there's another one, A Night to Dismember. But yeah, each year just really fantastic. Put a lot of creativity in these episodes. Great writing. The entire cast is fantastic. Even the kids, they were so young in the first few seasons, but they're really good actors for being young kids. And I thought they did a great job. You see them grow up, in front of you on camera. They're teenagers later on. But yeah, Home Improvement's still my favorite sitcom from back then. Love rewatching all these episodes, especially Halloween episodes during Halloween season. They hold up, and highly recommend it to all you folks out there if you haven't seen them. They're all on Hulu right now.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure to stream them on Hulu like I did. Next, another, classic sitcom show. When you think of the Halloween episodes, it's kind of the show that set the yearly Halloween, special episode kind of into effect and led to Home Improvement doing every year. Early on, Roseanne.
Welcome to the Tunnel of Terror. Please join us.
In season 2, episode 7, their very first Halloween episode that was so successful it led to the yearly model and releasing these. And it was titled Boo. Great episode from the get-go. The reason I like these so much is because whereas Home Improvement, they were kind of more like a middle class, like conservative family, even though they got into the Halloween spirit. Whereas Roseanne and her family, they're kind of like the outliers. The kids get to watch all the bloody and scary horror movies when they're kids, and nobody cares. They're not afraid to like use fake blood and act like they're killing each other and stuff. It's Roseanne and her family, so you get a lot of comedy mixed in too. But Boo is great because, like Home Improvement, there's a haunted house throughout the house. But basically, in Boo, it just shows the daily family life with Roseanne and her family, and it also has to do with Dan's boss. He's going to be flying in for a big meeting with Dan at the end of after Halloween, and he ends up showing up early and actually showing up at the house on Halloween night, and he kind of gets into the action thanks to Roseanne. But this episode's all about Roseanne and Dan trying to one up each other with these pranks. Dan acts like he cuts his finger off at one point. Roseanne sticks her hand in the toaster. They're going back and forth, and that's what really makes it work. Is Dan and Roseanne, their relationship where they're always busting each other's balls, and then the kids, the youngest, who's like probably 4 or 5 there, also getting in on the Halloween spirit, dressed as like a ninja.
Welcome to the Tunnel of Terror.
And then you have Dan, Dan and Roseanne dressing up in various ways. Darlene was always my favorite. She'd always do crazy stuff. One episode, she had arrows going through her. They really play up the practical effects and really have a lot of fun around the Halloween season.
Yeah, and they decorated up the house like, we're talking about Home Improvement. Like you would remember as a kid, like the haunted house, all the decorations are up. Everybody's dressed up in costumes and felt really cool, going back to the early 90s when this came out and being a kid again. And yeah, this takes place in Illinois. It's apparently supposed to be like Elgin, which isn't too far from where I live, which is, like a middle class, working town. And it really has that feel of the house and everything. And probably why it's nostalgic for us, growing up in Illinois, seeing houses like that growing up in this time, and just always trying to have fun during Halloween and scare the shit out of your friends and family.
For sure. Yeah, so much fun. They're able to capture that on these shows. And the second Halloween episode, aired a year later in 1990, season 3, episode 7, Trick or Treat. Basically, in this episode, you have a Roseanne dressing up like a man, which is funny. There's a whole scene where they go to the bar. We have Dan in the classic costume that he wore. He dressed up as the Three Stooges. You get the classic scene where he's doing the and like slapping each other and doing the funny stuff. And you have young DJ who wants to dress like a witch in this episode. And that has Dan worried because he doesn't want his kid to get picked on at school, end up with a black eye, he says, and kind of has a discussion with Roseanne about that. And he comes to the conclusion, well, I should just tell DJ here that he should be a goblin. Maybe he's a goblin or, somebody that can grant wishes. And DJ, he's like, oh, okay, I can do that. And DJs ends up saying, no, I want to be a witch. And you have Roseanne dressed up like as a man. She goes to the bar to have some drinks. She's got the beard, dressed like a trucker. And she's there having some drinks. And meets this group of guys and they're shooting the shit, talking about women and acting all macho. And she's like, yeah. And they don't notice that it's a woman, of course, she looks like a man, like you could play it off, but when she talks, you can honestly tell it's Roseanne. But the guys, they finally end up hitting on one of Roseanne's friends, and she ends up intervening, and then they get in Roseanne's face. Dan walks in and about kicks the guy's ass, like, "What are you talking to my wife like that?" And then they almost get into it. But just a fun episode, and you can see how Roseanne kind of was able to change genders here into this man, this big burly man, and then see Dan swoop in and come to her rescue.
Yeah, it's definitely a classic and memorable episode for sure. My one of my favorites, one I just rewatched, was from season 4, called Trick Me Up, Trick Me Down. I remember watching this when it came out, but basically, it's like the cliche. You had the haunted house at the Connor house. They're all dressed up in costumes. You had DJ dressed up as Alfalfa from the Little Rascals.
Yeah.
Got his hair sticking up and everything. But I love the whole bit with Roseanne and Dan, the ventriloquist and the dummy, and that whole sequence. The makeup's really cool. It's funny.
Yeah.
They work really well together in this episode. It's probably one of the better Halloween episodes for Roseanne. One I just remember watching and still enjoying it. Kids are really great in this, but I just love the ventriloquist act. As Dedgar Bergen and Mortuary Snurd, it was their names in that bit.
Yeah.
So it's really good, really clever writing. I thought it was funny. You have Dan and Roseanne really killing it in this episode. Literally.
They have so much fun with the Halloween episodes, and each year it's always a different story, kind of a different take, a different snapshot of their lives at that time. But yeah, you mentioned them at the end, that whole bit where they were the ventriloquist and the ventriloquist dummy. That was really clever. And, they played it up, and they always work well. That's why the show worked so well and went on for all those seasons, and this, still on. Roseanne would still be on there today if she didn't get canceled. So, I mean, people like Roseanne and Dan together. There's a reason for it. And yeah, Trick Me Up, Trick Me Down. Season 4, episode 6 was a prime example of that. And another great entry into the Halloween, episodes of Roseanne, classic. They did them all the way up until season 9, I believe. So every year they came out with the Halloween episode, I believe. After the first season where they didn't have any, every season after that they had a special episode. Another one that I remember back in the day was, I think it might have been Halloween 4, where Roseanne, it's kind of like the ghost of Christmas past.
Yes.
She, a ghost comes and she sees like what her life could have been like, going back all the way to when she was a little girl, all the way up into, how she is now. So really cool and interesting take, and different, like we mentioned before, than the other ones. That was another memorable one for me.
Yeah, I like the costume by Dan. He wore the big Victorian dress with a decapitated head. Was really cool. But yeah, he had like a Christmas, was a Christmas Carol. But yeah, really good writing in this episode. Definitely one of the better Halloween episodes for Roseanne. But yeah, they put them out, I think, all the way up to season 9 Halloween episode each year. But these are definitely the better ones. There's a few that I liked in the later seasons that were pretty good. For Satan, Darling, it came out in season 9 with the ladies from that Comedy Central show back then. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I love going back to Lanford. I think that's what they called the town. Roseanne.
Lanford,
yeah. But yeah, Lanford. Between these two shows, really reminded me of where we lived and, how we felt around Halloween. I think that's why we love these shows so much. And, decided to revisit these for the 31 Days of Horror. A lot less scary, you'd say, than others, but just a lot of fun, and gets the fun out of Halloween. It doesn't always have to be scary or somebody getting chopped up or something. There's other stories to tell, and these, told the family stories around Halloween really well, and just fantastic. Both of the shows. I'd probably give the nod to Home Improvements overall, but Roseanne, had some classic ones there that I'll never forget. Especially the first half, I'd say, of the Halloween episodes. Later on, I didn't really care as much during the later seasons.
Yeah, just two kids from the Midwest. I think that's why we really, close to us growing up, very nostalgic for us. It felt like us being kids, because we grew up, with autumn, fall weather here, going out, it's chilly out, you're trick or treating with your friends, going over to a friend's party, bobbing for apples and candy and just getting lit, and lots of sugar back then. You had the Taylors in Michigan, you had the Connors in Illinois, and obviously both of us being from Illinois. So it was two shows that we highly recommend if you haven't seen them. They're both Home Improvements on Hulu, and then you have Roseanne on Peacock. So if you guys haven't checked it out, if you guys haven't checked it out, definitely do that. Especially the Halloween episodes. Almost every season they have one.
So that wraps up the 31 Days of Horror, man. I can't believe it's over, dude. Another epic month of all things Halloween, all things horror. Man, it's been a great time. Love doing this every year. Gets better. We get more ambitious every year. We try to outdo ourselves. We are in need of some sugar from the candy now. And we'll be lifted up again and rise from the ashes for next year, 31 Days of Horror.
You don't know what death is? And another 31 Days of Horror, really fantastic month. We both work, shooting videos, the editing, getting these all posted, still trying to hang out with our family and friends and everything else going on. We do it zero sleep, basically. I'm looking forward to November, so I'm going to be sleeping for the first week. So we're going to take probably a week off after you're going to be in Florida. We're going to take a week off after 31 Days of Horror, get all our energy back, and we'll be back, shooting some more TV and movie reviews and interviews and podcasts and all that fun stuff that we love doing here at Cinefellas. But we really want to say thank you to everybody that watched us this past month. We've got a lot of hits, a lot of comments from a lot of people out there that are new to Cinefellas, a lot of old fans. So just wanted to say thank you so much for watching these two guys and the rest of the crew yap about our favorite, month of the year, favorite genre of movies and TV shows. It's been a blast.
Definitely. We thank every one of you guys, and we are so happy to be able to do this every year and so happy to have, followers and people check out our stuff. Thank you guys so much. It means everything to us. And we'll be back very soon. We got some movies coming out in November to review. We're going to recharge a little bit, regroup, and we're going to be back. And it's going to be holiday season yet again is upon us. It's 3 big holidays in a row, and these boys aren't going to slow down anytime soon. Thanks so much for tuning in this 31 Days of Horror. Until the next 31 Days of Horror, Logan and Henry are about to go back to our coffins. Cheers!